Hello and welcome to Freedom. This is today's edition of the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, the conversation goes once again to taxation, and we're asking, is there value for a citizen of Uganda in paying taxes? And joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished young people of this country, Uganda, whom I'll give an opportunity to introduce themselves, and later we get into the depth of the conversation. I'll start from my extreme right. Gentlemen, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Arinda Rugambwa from Uganda Christian University. Thank you.
Arinda Isaac, you're most welcome. We're happy to have you this morning, and we're happy to be joined by the community of Uganda Christian University on the show. And the lady, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Bisikwa Sharon Patience, student at Kyambogo University.
Bisikwa Sharon Patience, Kyambogo University, you're most welcome, and we're happy to have you this morning. And we send our greetings to all the students in the country and all the institutions. We have UCU, we have Kyambogo, Makere, IU, KIU, KU, all the universities in the country, all the institutions, all the schools, all the technical and vocational training centers. We send our greetings and we join you in whatever you do out there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the conversation is about taxation. And we say, is there value for taxation to the Ugandan citizen today, the past year, and maybe in the coming years? And I want to start with you, Arinda. When we talk taxation in the Ugandan context, what comes to your mind? First, taxation.
Thank you. Taxation. What comes to mind first is service. Yes.
Service. When you talk about these services, because services are things that come then when government collects the money, takes into treasury, does the budgeting and allocations and so on. Therefore, we get out services. But when you get your torch and put into this government on the taxes they collect, on how they are collected, talk about the Uganda Revenue Authority and all its policies and principles. Do you think we have the right taxation policy in this country?
Well, as a student of history, I will maybe a little bit first pull us back. Taxation is not a new system. It has been existing, and as far as I am concerned. We had our first tax laws getting into the limelight from around 1862. That is the American Civil War, the federal income tax coming in, and because of the extended Civil War, and basically it was to facilitate the soldiers that were on the front line. But even way before that, we had our first tax laws. When you look at the coveys, when you look at the tithe, the coveys were tax in form of peasants. And then it was followed by what was known as tithe, what Muganda would call echimwechekumi, in terms of landowners. So when we talk about tax and the current tax system, tax has not just started today, it has been there. And that's why I told you that when you tell me tax, I'm looking at service, so I'm looking at returns, and I'm looking at something that is a fuel to a system that is existing. All these different types of tax that I've highlighted, from the European system back to Africa, the tithe, the coveys, the Code of Hammurabi, tax has gone through a lot of, it has existed for a quite long period of time to attain its current shape. So when you ask me if we have a good tax policy or system in this country, Uganda, you are telling me to critique what we have today. But I've already highlighted two things, that is service and fuel. That without this tax, some of the things that would be moving cannot actually move. when maybe you tell me to question or critique the purpose or significance or the results of tax that maybe the taxpayer outside there is paying, then maybe that's a different question that I might need to address. But for the purposes of the question I've asked, the tax system and policy that we have so far, I think is 50-50.
Thank you. When I come to you, when we talk taxes, you do know that you are a taxpayer in this country, right?
Yes, I am.
Why do you pay taxes to this government of Uganda?
Okay. It's by law that every citizen in Uganda has to pay taxes. The Constitution of Uganda, Article 157, mandates or talks about that every citizen should pay taxes in the country. So it's legal for everyone to pay taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, lady. We are joined by another gentleman on the panel. I'll give him a minute to introduce himself and invite him to the conversation. Gentleman, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Philip, and congratulations. I think it's my first time meeting you here, and I'm so excited. My fellow panelists, thank you for coming by. My name is Jotham Alinaitwe. I'm a student of journalism, media, and communication at Uganda Christian University, finalizing. I do serve with the National Youth Parliament as the 6th Youth Prime Minister, and I'm always very delighted. And humbled to be part of this space and sharing what has transpired throughout.
And we are very happy to have you. Now, the conversation is on taxation, and we are trying to interrogate the significance of citizens of this country in paying taxes to the government of Uganda. And I want to ask you, we do pay taxes, but in actual sense, should we pay taxes as citizens of Uganda?
Yeah, we should pay taxes. It's our mandate for service delivery and service programs to continue in our country. But at the same time, the same question you have asked me, that should we pay? Yeah, it is a mandate, and I always tell people that it is you personally, after paying tax, then you should seek for accountability. The way people have been asking for accountability and doing a sit-down strike, things are not working out. So I feel it's very important for us to pay tax to see that we have service delivery and other government programs to go on, because even the Bible is clear that you give a tithe to God and also give tax. When they were asking a question to God that should we also pay tax because we are paying tithe. So I feel it's very vital for us as citizens to pay tax, but at the same time it's also very important for us to seek accountability, because currently people are depressed. They are not seeing where their money is going or mandated. If a person is paying a lot of tax and is hearing an investor being given a tax holiday, and yet these are the same people government is funding for their programs run, and at the end of the day they are given a wide tax holiday, and the local person from Chikubo is not given a tax holiday or is not given a tax incentive to run their business. So at the end of the day, chemistry doesn't work out. So paying tax is good, but accountability to the taxpayer is very important.
Thank you so much. Arinda, earlier in your conversation, you did talk to us about the history of the taxation, and one of the things you talked about was the wartime and how tax was being collected so as to facilitate the activity of the military. When you look at us today in Uganda, and by extension the East African community, what are some of those key areas, some of those key reasons as to why we should actually interest ourselves in collecting taxes, collecting more, and government should actually collect from us?
Well, thank you, Mr. Philip. My brother Jotham here, in his submission, he mentioned something to do with Mark chapter 12, verse 19. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and it is very good, and Jesus was quite clear. He did not. It was a trap from the Pharisees, but he escaped it by giving us that analogy. To respond to your question, why we should the key areas in the East African region. First of all, when we take it at the East African level, all East African countries, including Somalia that has just recently been approved, we are doing quite bad in terms of tax returns. Why? One, we do not understand the purpose and import of tax. But from what I shared earlier, tax, what we get in returns, the primary purpose of tax is to fuel the government. It is to fuel the system, yeah? And maybe that's one thing, one reality that we have failed to appreciate. The tax, primarily, like I've explained, from the American Civil Wars, from the tithe, chimochekumi, the landowners and the landlords, the Code of Hammurabis, tax was primarily intended to support the people in government. You iterated something to do with Okchikembuga and all that of the Omukuka in the East. All these things are when you look at that return, it is supporting this small privileged class. And no wonder we see the podium that the speaker, they have just, increased it. It is tax supposed, so what we get as a taxpayer, what you get, it is the way you see an election. You send people into power, but the returns are minimal from your expectations. Yeah, they are minimal. The state is supposed to give back to society, but it does not. And that is the shadow of tax. What we expect in paying this tax is not what we get, simply because it goes in the MPs' salaries, because there is no else where government.
What should we be getting in paying these taxes, for example?
Very good. If we were to be genuine and a little bit more honest, we should be having a better system of healthcare. Yeah, the tax that we pay should directly correlate to the public services that we receive. Our transport system should be a little bit modified and better organized. When you look at the food that we eat, the processing centers, the organization, the structural organization of our cities, it should be far better. That is where, for example, if we talk about potholes, then you ask, because we are not seeing anything being implemented. But before we even question why or where the tax is going, our brother iterated and said the accountability, yeah? But like I have said, tax does not only go back to redistribution or go back to us, the taxpayers. Tax, a bigger portion of tax is the fuel for the existing government to
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Lady, when I come to you, you see, he mentioned some of the things we should be getting from the taxes and taxation, the healthcare system, the transportation system, roads. I know many of you, if not all of you, are very much aware of the potholes we have on our roads across the city and across the country. He talks about education, a couple of the things. In your assessment, how would you score a government in terms of making sure we get these that we should get from paying taxes to them?
Actually, I would like to say that government has done its role in providing these services, but then the services are still, the service delivery is still poor, especially in the health sector. Many government hospitals don't have equipment, the drugs, and also in terms of human resource, paying the workers that are employed in different sectors to provide services to the people. Yes, government is performing its role to give the services to the people, but what they are doing is not enough because the services are still poor. The education system, some districts don't have enough schools.
So when you say that it is doing its role, but the services are still poor,
yes,
what is the missing link in between?
The leaders, I think, the leaders and the policies.
The leaders.
Yes,
and
the
policies.
leaders and the policies in the delivery of these services to different districts.
Thank you. Arinaitu, when you listen to that, she mentions the leaders and the policies set up. I want you to, and I'm calling you from the perspective of trying to understand, because we pay taxes from Ministry of Finance. For example, they are preparing a budget of about 58.3 trillion shillings today. We've been running a budget of 52 trillion shillings. Budget performance. How are they performing? We allocate billions to, say, the education sector. We allocate trillions to transport. We allocate trillions to security. Let's talk performance. What is the performance, in your view, of this budget and the allocations in terms of what we get on the ground, the roads, the hospital, the education?
Thank you so much, Philip. Surprisingly, on its part, government has tried to play its role. If you visit areas, traveling to different deeper areas, maybe if you're going to Moroto Road, where I come from, Hoima, for me, literally from Kampala to my village, I'm on a tarmac road. But now, another challenge that is really happening, we are having, is government failing to popularize its activities in terms of service delivery. We are having challenges right now which are happening in Kampala, the potholes. We are having people are requesting for service delivery, poor healthy systems. But surprisingly, in different districts, to a percentage, some has been provided medications, and if you have been having, literally, a few streaks have been cut off. So we are having a challenge in terms of government, trying to tell its people its work it has done. But another thing, I will stick on accountability when it comes back to government, giving accountability to people. It's like when someone or a donor is giving you funds and you're not accounting for them, trust me, literally, in the next quarter, that donor is likely not to add you more funds. So that's the challenge basically we are having.
You see, that sounds like a contradiction to me. When you say government is doing its work, and in another bit you say the services are not enough, the services are not there, and there is no accountability. That sounds like a contradiction.
It's not a contradiction. My point was that to some extent, government has done its work in terms of roads and in terms of a little bit of healthy systems. But the challenge is government popularizing its work. However much we are having other areas that have not captioned or have not got enough in terms of, it is actually regional imbalances that we are having. I think it comes back to...
You know, Jotham, I'm struggling to understand your point, because now, when you say government is doing its job and you add it to, say, regional imbalance, for example, which region in this country would you say, these people, the education system is okay? In this region, the health system is okay, the hospitals are there, the machine is there.
I don't want to pin me on, I don't want to point out regions, because I don't want to say this region, but basically reports have been, civil society organizations have pointed out different reports in regards to regional imbalances we are having in our own community. And no, to take a leave, if you have ever recently, when we had high dropouts in Soga region, a lot of girls were dropping out due to either lack of facilities, lack of facilities outside there. But yet we are having a certain region doing greatly in academics, and they are sending a high batch number in terms of education, in terms of government scholarships. So that shows you how basically either government is prioritizing a certain region, and it goes back to what she said in terms of legislation. If you go back to the parliament, these policies are drafted on table, but then the parliament decides who is benefiting. So if your legislator is not very active or is not a proactive person to fight for your community, that means you will not benefit. But then it comes back to our context of our understanding that should government work like that, bonanza style, if you are advocating for this in parliament, should your community be rewarded this? So those are basically the ethics that we need to work on as a government, as a region or as our area, to see that every person in this country should benefit from the tax they pay. Because even a local person from either Nakapilipiliti, from Hoima, from a different region, they pay tax. So I feel it's really, really very vital for every person to benefit on this, on the tax that is collected.
Thank you. Arinda, when I come back, you want to...
I want to tell you something about, in context with the question you asked about budgeting. You see, all districts in Uganda because we are under decentralization. So all districts in Uganda draft their budgets and they submit their budgets to the central government. So the funds are released from the central government to local governments to perform their different services. But then the funds that are released, I think most of the funds go in the wrong hands. So the delivery of the provision of services in the different districts is so poor because maybe the funds go in the wrong hands of the different leaders in those specific districts.
One of the conversations that arises from that argument is the fact that, for example, Wakiso district is the district that collects the highest taxes in this country, and the combination of Wakiso and Kampala contribute about 70% to the taxes we collect. In that regard, how much should government return? Because they say we collect a lot, but government gives back little. Therefore, we are unable to do what we are supposed to do as a district that collects the most.
Thank you so much. Now, let me tell you one thing. Every local government collects its money and gives it to the central government. But when central government is forwarding back the funds, it forwards back according to the percentage that was collected. So if Wakiso collects a lot of funds, there is no way government is going to pick part of Wakiso's tax funds collected and give it to maybe, let's say, Mbale. If Mbale collects 10%, they will get 10%. If Wakiso collects 70%, they will get 70%. That is the system.
Isn't that a breeding, place for imbalance? Because look at a place, for example, let's go to Karamoja. There is very few economic activity going on. People are peasants, subsistence farming, cattle rearing. They will collect very little. How are they going to develop if they're only getting a percentage that relates to what they collected into the treasury?
Of course, it really brings in a system of imbalances, but then government needs to come up with different strategies on how to handle that.
Thank you so much. Arinda, if I come back to you, one of the conversations that keeps arising from this taxation debate is the fact that we are overtaxed. Recently, we had a traders' strike across the country. They're saying we are overtaxed. The system of taxation is also not clear, and so many other things. How much should we be paying to this government, in your view? Because if I create a base for that, we pay a couple of taxes in this country. Pay as you earn, income tax. There is another tax called, a couple of them, about 6, 7 of them. For example, if you go to the trading environment, you have about 5 taxes you have to pay. Are these all taxes we should pay? Isn't that too much to be collected from individuals? Value-added tax.
Well, Mr. Phillip, again, I think before I address the question of how much should we be paying, I'm going to draw from the 2 previous submissions. One, in Western Uganda, we have a saying that says, "Omurungi tabula kamogo." Yes.
Which translates
everywhere.
I have used the Western dialect because it's the one I best understand. What I'm trying to relate to is that in as much as government has tried to perform the point he was trying to explain, it does not go without saying that it has actually failed in its tax policies and implementation plans. So in as much as we might say that, yes, we have paid the tax, the fact remains that the tax has not served its intended purpose. You highlighted people from Karamoja, there is even people from Rwanda, and trust me, if we are to go even these newly created districts, the tax returns are so minimal, which of course I will distance myself from her submission when she says that if Wakiso makes a collection of 10%, the government will return that. But still in her previous submission, she says Wakiso does not get the proportion that people, he said the people in Wakiso do not get the proportion that they get. So that means that once we pay this tax, where does it go? Maybe that should be our starting question. Where does it go? and what does it do? Yeah, when we draw these budgets of maybe, let's say, 500 million, let me take an example, 500 million for Kabale district, and maybe let's say it has been released. Does it really mean that Kabale district collects 500 million, or is it the threshold? Because if the system is like that, like you said, then that does not support development. It does not bring in maybe like Nebi district or Dokolo district, which is incapable of providing that. And then on the development scale, where does it leave the entire country? Yeah, he talks about the tarmac roads, Hoima and all, but Rwanda has almost 98% tarmacked.
It's a small country.
It being a small country, and Uganda, I assume that Uganda being a bigger country will have better tax returns, right? We have better businesses, right? And if we have better businesses, because EFRIS that people are complaining about is intended for people who pay VAT. VAT, which is, according to the analysis I have, 150 million plus. It's intended for those people. They even actually go on, when you check on their website, URA, they even go on to tell you that even those people who are earning below that, there are even other advantages. This is an electronic system that has been brought to aid traders. Instead of you lining up at URA or losing your invoices, or it makes, but why are we fighting such a system? Yeah? Why is the digital age, why is its manifestation pushing us into a corner? Yeah?
You see, Arinda, if you allow me on that one, why are we, or why are the traders or whoever is fighting, like you say, is fighting? It is basically, this is technology. This is a device. One, there is a cost involved in operating the technology, in installing and operating the technology. But two, you are talking about a country, and I bring in the context of literacy and illiteracy. How many of our traders, I don't know whether you've interfaced with this system, are able to run such a system?
I have. Thank you so much. One, I want to pose a simple question to all the panelists here. Are you poor? And no. It is an answer. The question is very simple.
How you contextualize poverty?
No. Without context, without what? Are we poor?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
To what
You don't-
context?
you
What
don't-
context?
What I'm trying to arrive at is quite simple. That the fact that we know that either we are a low class or a middle class or somewhere as a state, it should not be a source of lamentation. The earlier we appreciate the digital age, the faster we grow. The more we keep with the conversation of literacy and illiteracy, with Uganda being ranked among countries that at least have people countries you go to and they will address you in English, and maybe you will make business and things will move. If we stay at that line, at that base there, if our conversation is going to be centered on we are not saying yes to EFRIS because maybe we would not understand it, or maybe if we are saying no to EFRIS because it sabotages business, I would say tick. But if you are sabotaging EFRIS without appreciating its intended purpose, and of course, yes, there is a cost involved. Why? The system has to run. That is, we pay MTN. Doesn't MTN give you data? You're billing internet.
You see, Arinda, the reason people are talking about this is you are talking about the cost. This is eating into this trader's profit. The trader is interested in profit. That is the conversation. You are bringing something, first I do not understand it, two, it eats in my profit. How do I know it won't even deplete my capital?
I'll give you an example of Germany. One of the countries that are very, very bureaucratic. And not to say in terms of corruption, but in terms of service delivery, you cannot start a business in Germany unless it satisfies the tax policies in Germany. What am I arriving at? It is quite simple. Government is not really eating into your profit. No. If we are talking about potholes, if you heard yesterday what happened in Masaka Road. Chengera.
The damage
Yes.
on the road.
You get. So who is going to fix that? In our budget framework, did we budget for that calamity was going to happen? Is there an existing fund that?
It is. We have the Uganda Road Fund. It is a standard fund for such
When
instances.
we are budgeting for road construction, yes?
Yes.
Do we have money that it is just there to repair? Or if it is just there, then why are we having potholes?
Yes, and that drives me to where I'm going exactly. And if I engage you on that particular point, every budget, even if it were your small birthday party budget in your home, I'm sure there is something you put called miscellaneous or something like that. That is for the small level. At the national level, there is, in fact, there is a whole ministry, first of all, for disaster and so on. Then in the Ministry of Works and Transport, there is a budget for repairs, for maintenance, for road works. It is a standard budget.
Mr. Phillip, what happened in the Masaka Road yesterday? If we had 20 or 85 instances happening countrywide, what would be the response?
That is a calamity. That is a disaster.
Very good.
We have a ministry.
And this is why I am supporting EFRIS. And this is the same reason I'm supporting tax collection.
Thank you.
This fund has to be
you.
there. It has
Thank
to be
you.
supported.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think
I want to ask you. You said government is not interested in our profits. If government is not interested in our profits, why are there high taxes?
One, I would not say that we have high taxes. Surely we don't have high taxes.
Are you sure?
Yes. I will reiterate that we have both direct and indirect tax. When just in a week's time, when they announced EFRIS taking over, I went to a supermarket and something that was costing 20K, I found it at 40. And trust me, I left the supermarket without buying anything. But then I went back and asked myself, if this is the system that we are going to live in, are we going to leave Uganda and maybe go to another country to run away? Definitely we are not. Where does this system of taxation push us to? Where the people that are trying to direct us, what is their mind behind this system?
You see, you're a scholar of taxation, and one of the qualities of a good tax should be that, one, it should be transparent, but also affordable. Is that affordable to the citizen of Uganda? Just briefly as I engage.
Mr. Phillip?
Yes.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. If I come to you, Bisikwa lady, one of the points he brings out is the money is not being enough. We don't have a budget for things like what happened on Masaka Road. That takes me to priorities. How does our government, in your view, prioritize? I look at things like the budget of the Parliament of Uganda, the budget of the Office of the President, the budget of State House, the budget of Ministry of Defense. The priorities we take, are they the right priorities? Should it be Ministry of Defense taking the lion's share of the budget? Should it be Office of the President having the biggest share, a singular office having the biggest share in the budget, or Ministry of Health? What is your view?
Actually, you see, every sector has its own budget, because budgets are drafted for funds to be allocated to the different sectors. And I cannot say that this particular office should take the highest shares, but rather, in my view, the funds should be given to all sectors, but there should be some sectors that should be prioritized more, especially health. We have lots of people sick out there in different hospitals. The services are poor. The nurses are not there to work on them because the health workers are also not paid on time. So the services are poor. Education, the roads, we have a lot of potholes. And okay, government may release funds, but still I'll go back to my point of the leadership. The leaders in the processes where those stages where the funds are released. So sometimes maybe the leaders swindle the money instead of allocating the funds where they're supposed to go.
If you are in charge of, for example, say the budget of this country is 58 trillion. You have two things to give money, and you have 3 trillion and 1 trillion. You have the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Education. Which would you give the 3 and which would you give the 1?
I would give 3 to Ministry of Education.
Thank you. If I come to you, Arinaitu, you know, this conversation of prioritization is so interesting, and he really talks about a couple of things, including the roads and the lack of funds to do particular things. I want to ask you still, in the line of prioritization, when you go down and look at where we put our monies, one of the conversations that keeps growing in the country is the fact that our recurrent expenditure, or the money we spend on governance, paying salaries, buying cars for government officials, fueling them, giving them huge salaries, is increasing every other year. And the money we put in where we can get extra money from, say in agriculture, say in tourism, keeps diminishing. What's your view of that trend of things in this country?
Thank you so much for that question. And it's really interesting that the topic has gone. But I just want to first clarify, to differ from you.
Please.
You know, it's very important in the current systems where we are in. There is what we call stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement has been very vital. For the past, I think, around 20, 30 years, URA has been imposing new taxes on traders, on different stakeholders. We have never had such a strike, because they used to come down and consult from them.
And
So,
maybe briefly, if you allow me, just for
yes.
clarity, URA is a tax implementer. The taxes are introduced by Parliament.
Yeah, the taxes, they implement, they draft, they send to Parliament, and the Parliament approves it. And then the traders are okay with it. They're like, okay, because URA will go back on ground, because it goes back to URA. URA is like an image of tax. This is a tax man coming to pick tax. Then who implements? It's the Parliament, as I said. So the big concern is here, when they were drafting this, might be policy or the EFRIS system that they want to impose on people, the layman or the person on ground in Chikubo, because if you realize the high percentage we have in Chikubo, in where these are people who just found their way out. They struggled. A father mentored a father, a father mentored a son, and a son mentored a son. So they have limited system in terms of policy, in terms of understanding. Their work is to count paper and either pay their tax, and system runs. So if you are trying to bring such a system on a person and you have not consulted a person, what better ways can we have this is because for them they acknowledge the system is good, but the sustainability and how they can use this system to run in them, because this is one person is running a business, has to serve people, has to do accountability, and has to enter that bar of soap into the system for it to the receipt to generate. So I think if you see all the penalties that have been put in place, that if you miss a receipt, you're supposed to pay how much? Is it 6 million?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all the things are not clear. So we need to go back on the drawing board. The system is good. How best can we engage with you? We are bringing something on the table. We consult, then we send it back to the Parliament, and Parliament approves. So if we have greedy people who are not in favor of them, then that's when we are going to go back to the system where these guys are just catering for themselves, having high budget and squeezing this layman's
It is beautiful that you highlight the fact that the system is good.
The system is good, but it is not clear for a person to understand, the person on ground. Because these are the guys who pay a lot of money.
Of course,
By
then
the time we are
it takes
striking these 4
takes
days,
us-
government has lost a lot of money, and they acknowledge. That's why Mzee had to tell people, go back and work as soon as possible.
It takes us back to his point of literacy levels. Maybe, if maybe for the purposes of this conversation, that is going to be the problem. Then there it comes back to the wananchi, the Muntua 1C. Are we really going to cry about, like, it's the same question I posed to you about this? In as much as it looks at the new tax laws, I think is it section 73A of the tax amendment, it talks about who EFRIS is targeting. Yeah, it is not everyone. The Muntu Awansi, the people in Chikoba and whatever, those penalties do not affect them per se. The people that are being affected are those people that I think it's
150 million.
150 million. Of course, they're also crying that it is.
Do you know those guys have businesses worthy around 500 million? The guys who are in a ground corner who import suitcases, the guys who are around, the guys who are into textile, the guys are into cosmetics and what.
You see, Mr. Jotham, what you've just mentioned highlights one of the reasons why we need to support a URA or government in terms of utilizing these small collections so that we get services. Because surely, if we have businesses of 500 million plus, and we need the government to maybe work on the health sector, the education sector, the transport system, then surely I would say that we would just rather not wholesomely say that tax should be that obsessive, but a little that we are collecting, if it is put to good use, maybe the question would be now, like maybe she mentioned, on the end goal of the tax not being met. That is where maybe my challenge with the government now will come in. That yes, this tax is being collected, but the Muntu Awansi or its intended purpose is not actually met. When you talk about 30 years or plus of URA of collecting this tax, and then we question where does it go. In my earlier submissions, I mentioned and highlighted and stressed the fact that when we collect tax, or when tax is collected, who is the first person, who is the first beneficiary, and then the redistributed source or the redistributed funds that are remaining are the ones that, the smaller share that goes back to us. That's maybe the challenge that we face. These legislators, parliament, how big is our parliament? It's very big.
Isaac, Isaac,
and it has to be facilitated.
Please don't say that we should support URA. We cannot support URA in this system because their mode or the mechanism of enforcement they are using towards these traders is so brutal. I think you can.
When you submit that the method of collecting the taxes is brutal, that means that the tax is not the problem, right? If
no,
we are together.
The tax is the problem because the taxes are high.
Because when you say methodology of collection,
the thing is,
the taxes
are
high.
The traders are not against paying tax by that because they have been so loyal to the government for around past 60 years paying tax.
The traders are.
But the challenge is the policies that are being imposed on them. Number one, you are imposing in the current economy where we are, electricity is not stable 24 hours, internet, which is very expensive, and which is even very shady in those areas. So if we have clear policies for them, if you want them to use EFRIS, what have you put in place? Because besides if you realize...
Allow me to take back the conversation. Just one direct question. Do you have a tax identification number?
TIN?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Read it for us here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No. For the purposes of security.
Lady and gentlemen, I pull hold on that conversation. Thank you for those amazing views. The Inter-University Debates takes a very short break and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, we are discussing the relevance or the role of taxation or taxing citizens of this country called Uganda. And joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished young people. I have Arinda, Isaac, Rugambwa. I have from UCU.
Yes, sure.
I have Bisikwa here from UCU still. Kyambogo, sorry. And I have Alinaitwe here next to me, the journalist still from UCU. I think UCU is dominating the conversation today, but very well representing the entire citizenry and the students of this country, Uganda. Gentlemen, where we left off, we are discussing these systems. I want us to start from this point of, society evolves wherever you go, whether it is the biology, whether it is the economics, whether it is the social life. Things have to change at a particular point. In this country, we're so much used to fairly analog systems, and we are comfortable as a country, and by extension, the region and the continent. But the world has far moved from that position. We have challenges, but I want to ask you, and I think I'll pick a view from all of you. How sustainably do we shift? I know we had the digital migration in the telecommunications sector, in the television and radio station things and so on. But how sustainably do we transit as a country, as a region, as a continent, to get into these standards, into this modern way of doing things in taxation, like we're discussing EFRIS, and in all other sectors, in the health sector, in security, and so on. I'll start with you.
Mr. Philip, you're talking about sustainable transition, but 1789, we saw what happened in France. And one of the reasons why we had that rebellion was things to do with overtaxing the middle state people. When you look at Karl Marx's diagram, the lumpens who are at the base and responsible for fueling the higher ups, still when these people come together because of the high taxes, you also know what can happen. Frederick Budge, in his book, Tax Rebellions and Revolts, around, it's a transitional book, it has volumes. When you read that book, its introductory chapters, you realize that tax has always been fought. Yeah? So the question that we shall ask then is, if tax is being fought by the taxpayer, what is the tax master doing? When we talk about sustainable transition, it will bring me to, is Uganda taking the next step in development? Or it is going to hit a dead end, where people will reach a point and say, you know what, enough is enough, we have paid tax, things are not, we are not getting the services, we are not getting anything, what do? You know what can happen from the annals of history between 71 to 79, and then that period to 86, until we have the 10-point program, which today, if I start to question, it will be another debate. So there are two things. It's either we are taking that stronger step as a collective state, which, according to the current odds, does not fit in those parameters.
So then how, when you look at, for example, the citizens of this country and generally peasantry, low education, poor quality education, even those that are at the high end are not really so. We have some sentimental, feudalistic kind of view of doing things. How do we bring these citizenry to appreciate the advantages of shifting?
One, it is high time as a country we start performing. We have to. Like I've already highlighted it, because if government doesn't do what it's supposed to do, the citizen, the taxpayer, will question the system. And the more we question the system, one of the reasons why we had our esteemed president have that conversation with the traders was to settle that agreement, because he knows what it means if he doesn't settle that. He knows what it can turn into. It is not news. It has happened before and it can happen again. Yeah, all over the African continent. So the government must come up with a clear methodology, a very transparent system, and say, this year we collected this and this tax, and we were able to do A, B, C, and D. I like the public audit system that exists in Rwanda. For those of you who are anti-Rwanda, I am sorry, but Rwanda is Rwanda is part of the African continent and forms a very integral part. Yeah. So when you look at their public audit system, I think for me it works so well. We give, for example, let me use our system here in Uganda. Let me use Kabale district. There is a budget released at the district level, and there's no clear accountability on how money has been spent. The road that was put into budget so things, the money is there, the tax is collected, but on ground, government does not take that initiative to reach on the grassroots and see, did this money do what was intended to do? You heard about the coffee saga. Things that didn't exist. The other time I heard over a goat was being charged with 6 million in the agricultural sector.
7.
This is taxpayers' money. But government does not take the initiative to go down on the grassroots and ask, yes, we released money, but did it do what it was supposed to do? So if we do not do that, then we are not transitioning at all. We are not in any way even close to that we are talking about.
Thank you. Sustainable transition. How do we achieve that?
Thank you so much. I'm going to say it in the context of Uganda. Before the system was manual, traders would write everything down, receipt everything, every documentation, then maybe go and pay taxes. And then I think in 2019, government came up with a system called EFRIS. It was brought up in 2019, though it came into existence like in system in 2021. So government came up with it to help traders. So in 2021, when it came into existence, that's when the system started working. So I think government literally needs to go to the ground levels, kumuntu wa wansi, to teach them. I mean, in the markets, I know there are associations of traders, and these associations have specific or particular leaders that are chosen by the traders. So government can work in terms or can work together with those leaders to teach the people about the use of the system, the modified systems used in trading. And then also, I would talk about sustainability in a way that government, okay, most traders in the recent strike were saying that the systems are expensive to install. So government can the government can either reduce the prices on the installation of the systems in place, or the government can give the traders the systems, but then the traders can pay back at a slow pace. Maybe let's say at the end of every month, a trader would pay this specific money, but then mostly government should come on ground and teach the people on how to use the systems. Because a lot of people during the strike were saying we don't know how to use EFRIS, other people even calling it different names. So you really see that there's a gap in that. So government should address that for sustainability.
Thank you so much. Yes, Arinaitu. Sustainable transition.
Yeah, sustainable transition has to be put in place, because when we left the digital system, the analog system to the digital system, people had to adapt it to see that they can utilize it. So sustainable transition calls for everyone. So it doesn't matter, but how best can we see that we can't leave anyone behind, and people being left behind? I think, in my opinion, we should also look for other terms of how best we can widen our tax base. But at the same time, we should also see how best, like my colleague has said here, we should sensitize and educate these people. Because these systems have been put in place when people had the system that they're going to be paying for their televisions to watch channels. We had a lot of chaos, and when people were educated and sensitized, the communities these days are okay with it. So I can subscribe, I can pay this amount. So it really calls for a collective effort. Then another thing is collaboration between government entities. URA is just an authority, but we have Ministry of Finance and we have different government entities that can collaborate. Recently I saw government launching Government Interaction Citizen Center, where they try to break out every information. But in my opinion, I'm of a view that we need to go back on ground, sit with these people, understand what they want, then we go back on the drawing board, see how we can simplify the systems to them, for them to understand, because we cannot deny sustainable transition, and how best we need to see best ways we can simplify it. Rome was not built in one day, and the systems are there because each day we upgrade. We were walking, we are using cars, we are using flights, and at time T we shall fly. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to see you flying. I want to, specifically to that conversation of sustainable transition. One of the things that happened, for example, when we had the traders' strike is the solution point was the president. Traders meeting the president. When we have doctors' strike, they meet the president. When you have teachers' strike, they meet the president. Every other crisis we have in the country, it must be the intervention of one individual, the president of this country. Is that a sustainable system of solving all kinds of crises in the country? Arinda.
Well, firstly, I will, that's a very tactical question. If I want to respond to it in the legal side, I will borrow you from Article 98 of the Constitution, that yes, the president represents the country and
is the fountain of honor.
Yes, so definitely if the citizens that he represents want to, we are even lucky that we have access to the president, that our traders here, or our doctors, or our medics can have that interaction. It's some countries that doesn't happen. But again, when it goes to the question of organization of society and how the system should be moving, first I will say it should not even reach that extent. Under the influence or the presumption that as a head of state, he surely has very, very important matters, both national and international, to attend to. So such, of course, in as much as he is our head of the state, and in as much as he supposed to give us audience, that could be if the system was okay, yeah. If the system of governance or the system of leadership was okay, we would indulge the president at the very, very highest extreme of matters.
We are even lucky that we can meet and have conversations with this president.
Yes, some states you don't.
Who is a servant of the people? Thank you for that conversation. I want to come to you, lady. You see, we are discussing taxation and this involves money, but one of the major challenges we've had in this country is mismanagement of money at all levels, from the highest to the lowest. What is wrong with us as a people in managing money?
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to start by answering the other question that you posed to my colleague. Let me tell you this. By the time someone skips all these ladders of leadership that put in place, and traders or people or someone says, I want to meet the highest authority, the president, that means there is a loop in the systems that have been put in place. That means the traders or different people have not seen the workers, the leaders do their work. They have not seen the leaders perform their duties or represent them, because we choose our leaders to represent us. So there's a lot of there are loopholes in the system of leadership which needs to be addressed. And then I would like you to pardon me the second question.
You know, I interest myself a little more into what you say, the loopholes in the leadership. They are not performing their duties. Do we then just render these positions irrelevant?
No, but the government can come up with systems to reorganize the systems of leadership. If a particular office is not performing, that's why in the country we have a system of checks and balances. But then the system is weak. The system is not performing its duties. So the government really needs to work so much on that, to check on the offices that are not doing or performing their duties, because it doesn't look nice if traders say we want to meet Mzee, we want to meet the big man, yet they are leaders. So I think even the president, wherever he is, asks himself, but what are the leaders doing? If people directly want to come to me, and the traders believe that if we meet the president, we will get the solution.
Could it be so that he interests himself in such a setting, such that all power, even at the lowest, is drawn from him?
Actually, I think no. No.
Wow, thank you. Arinda, and I think we shall continue to have the conversation about this kind of setting, but what I had earlier asked her about management of money. We struggle to manage money. Little monies go to a government ministry, to an agency, to a parastatal, and the first thing you hear from there is money is nowhere. 10 billion was sent, we can only trace 2. Money is set for a road, but the road is non-existent. We have a hospital at Luvowa, 597 billion so far put in that project. You can barely see a thing there. We have, we borrowed money to give to someone to set up a factory to do textile for the country. The factory is non-existent, the money is non-existent. Ministries, he earlier talked about the goods we purchase. We talked about there's a budget we put in place to set up a vaccine, manufacturing facility, COVID vaccine. We've never seen the vaccine, we've never seen the facility, and we do not know where the money is. Why do we struggle to manage money in this country?
Because of the systems.
Okay. I think that is irrational.
No. Okay. In relation to that question, it's tricky, but the systems really, the systems are down, because if you see, we have the IGG. The president goes on to put in anti-corruption unit. Then the president goes in to constitute another anti-corruption unit in terms of monitoring on protection.
Investors protection. But you see, my interest is, even before we get to those, because that is addressing the challenge. But here at the starting level.
To the point. So those are the systems, I'm telling you, those systems have failed to work. So that's why they keep on building systems. Now back to your question, where we are having mismanagement of money. People have lost hope. And people now are thinking of, how am I sustaining my family? How am I sustaining myself?
Jotham, we give you 10 billion to construct a road and you lose hope?
No, because systems have failed. Let me tell you, we have example of Bamgemerire. What was done? We have the likes of Musenero. What was done? We have the likes of when Permanent Secretary Diana Twine was requested to give accountability for the COVID relief fund. What was done?
They lost hope?
People have lost hope. So if people and those people who are in those systems are seeing nothing has been put in place for these people or accounted for, and people are freely, people in ministries, Betty Among, when we had the conflicts in lands, when we had the conflicts, the recent conflicts when she was in Kampala, the minister for Kampala, and nothing has been done. These people are in the system, these people are enjoying, they are being promoted every time, they're enjoying life, and the person will be like, after all, I have protection. Nothing's going. Because the layman on ground, these are the guys, the accounting officers are the guys who are being arrested, and the right, real people who misuse or mismanage this money are freely enjoying, being promoted. So people have lost hope, and people who are in the system are like, okay, if this is like this, why can't I sustain myself with my family? Why can't I embezzle this? Even though you take me to anti-corruption unit, nothing's going to be done.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to invite you on that, but maybe for purposes of correction, he did talk about, just for purposes of aligning, the Honorable Monica Msenero, the Honorable Betty Among, the Honorable, who else did you talk about? Dr. Diana Twine, and so on. It is very important we keep the conversation respectful to some of these seniors and people that serve this country.
We withdraw that statement.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Jotham, not so far, but far from your assumption. The question of mismanagement goes back to, I think, capital culture. When you look at the system in Japan, a young kid is taught to respect a road cleaner. They cannot. When you're crossing in Japan, just at that minimal level. So the system grooms these kids when they uphold the values. So Japan as a system has created a culture that brings up its citizens. The second point is it takes us back to discipline. Mismanagement. If you can mismanage money in a public office, you are definitely mismanaging money in your home. And that means that the children you are raising, they are not going to be raised on how best they can handle money, because as a head of the home, you've not taught your children how to manage money. So indiscipline is still at the grassroots.
You see, one of the things that Africa has been known for is morals, having a very strong stratified sense of morals with respect for elders, respect for what is not yours. And this is something we've been bragging about. What happened along the way?
What Africa is known for in terms of morals, in terms of culture, is things to do with, one, apart from this civilization that has come in, I think you see my sister is apart from this current system, what we knew Al-Qiblan to be, what we knew the motherland of Africa to be, was what I can draw from South Africa to be Ubuntu. I am because you are, the system of coexistence with each other, which was so lacking in Western Europe. That is the culture that is so much appreciated and is actually advocated for. We even actually studied, I think students of jurisprudence would agree with me on that. The question of mismanagement of money comes back to you, Philip. It comes back to Jotham. It comes back to Patience. It comes back to me, Isaac. If I have 50,000, how am I going to utilize the 50,000? It goes back to, if I am in a public office and I'm running a budget of 500 million, do I have the patience or do I have the discipline to implement what the country has budgeted for its citizens? It still comes back to that intrinsic moral character of a person that we are entrusting this public office with. If we do not have that, even if Museveni says what, even if he does what, the fact that the people in offices, like he has said, they go there to harvest. They go to just collect, not to actually serve, not to present themselves as a solution or problem solvers for the people that have sent them there. So we go to office not because we want to serve, but because we want to live.
Yes, I see you're itching to say something about it.
Yes, I would like Jotham to withdraw his statement where he said that nothing has been done about the people that have have maybe swindled money or something. Mr. Jotham, I would like to tell you that government has better ways of addressing issues. Maybe if a worker, a worker, or let's say a minister or anyone holding a position of leadership has involved themselves in corruption, first of all, government has procedures on how to punish that person. Government may interdict that person, maybe stop them from working as they put another person to work. Then government carries on an investigation. If things are not true or they are true, government finds ways of punishing that particular person. So I would love you to withdraw that statement of saying that there's nothing
If you
that has
allow
been
me,
done.
please,
Before I withdraw that
let
statement,
let me take it on.
Yeah.
You see, I hold overall powers to ask him to withdraw or not withdraw. I'll first ask for a ground of withdrawal. For example, he did talk about the mismanagement of iron sheets meant for relief to Karamoja region. Did we have something done?
Yes.
What was done?
Government came up with measures to investigate the different people. We saw different court sessions being held where different people that were involved in the scandal being called upon and asked about the whole thing. So government is still investigating the incidences. So let's not say that government has done nothing about
Patience.
it. As I said, government has better ways of punishing their people.
And you see, this is, I want us to be very clear on this one. For example, you had about 23 ministers involved in this anomaly, and you had about 40 or 50 members of parliament. Yes, we saw two ministers being, taken into a judicial process that at some point was halted and has never resumed. Is that justice to you?
Yes, it is. Because, let me tell you, I said government investigates before them passing out a public announcement. So I think government is still investigating, because some members of parliament said I wasn't involved, others said I was. So those ones who said that they were, investigations are still going on.
If you allow me, for example, you know that in investigations there are things, there's a language used in investigation that I might not be so technical about, but there's something so, what they call open information, and information that has to be dug from underground. You have, for example, a honorable minister who says, yes, I saw these iron sheets, I have them in my compound. I don't know how they came in my compound, but at least I've seen them there. How much more investigation do you have to undertake to confirm that there are iron sheets in this person's compound?
Now, government has its own procedures that it follows.
How are different from those?
Subject to human understanding.
Procedures different from the different accounting officers?
Thank you. But in any case,
who are in prison now?
I want us to continue discussing the subject of management of the money we collect as taxes. And the reason I take you to this point is inspiration. There is always inspiration in doing something, and one of the things that has been talked about if you want to motivate people to pay taxes, make sure there is value for that tax. Make sure when this citizen goes to the hospital, they don't worry about not finding medicine there, not finding a bed, not finding a doctor 24/7. Make sure this doctor is paid. Make sure there is a school, the structure is good, there is a laboratory, this student is studying a reviewed course. Make sure there is a university. Make sure there is a good road. You are motivating this citizen. Here we are. We have monies put in offices. Recently, we had something called the Uganda Parliament exhibition on X. Very ugly scenes came out of that exhibition.
That's the justice she's talking about. The justice.
Very ugly scenes came out of the Uganda Health exhibition. Not to mention the Uganda Porthole exhibition. You could have seen bits of what came out from these. That doesn't inspire Ugandan to pay tax, does it?
No.
What do they do? Do they withdraw statements that say you are doing wrong? Should we keep silent about these wrongs? Will they solve themselves?
No, we should not keep silent about that, but there are better ways to address our challenges to the system.
Please equip us with some of those ways. One or two are enough.
I will go back to the point that I said that we have associations in the markets, the people that drive taxes everywhere. So through the associations, through the leaders that we've elected in the different sectors, we should have conversations with the leaders that have been put in place to handle our issues and address the issues. Maybe if the leaders fail to address the issues, we can send, if I was a trader and maybe there is our leader, we could maybe go opt for another higher authority. If the higher authority doesn't handle it, then we go to another authority. Let me tell you this, if something reaches maybe the third authority, the third authority will ask and say, but if you want, did you go to this office? They say yes. Did you go to this? And nothing was done about it, yes. So that calls for a meeting for all the authorities to address the challenges.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately our time is very fast spent. There's something I want us to discuss briefly, but very important in these last few minutes that we have on the show. Something called sustainability in spending. When you look at our offices, for example, earlier we talked about the 557 members of parliament we have. Every new term we give, now it is 210 million shillings to buy a vehicle. We fuel these vehicles.
Government has never been broke.
We service these vehicles. We give them mobile phones, our members of parliament. We give them airtime. We give them health insurance. Come to the ministers, same thing. Presidential advisors, the last count I had was 120. 82 ministers now, vehicles, fueling, health insurance, huge salaries. Today I saw one of the newspapers, I think yesterday, was talking about government has recruited more 300 RDCs to join the... And
yes.
Very many, the expenditures, because you recruit another now, those 300, that is a new double cabin for that RDC. That is new security for this person. That is a salary for this person. That is health and all these other cares, a new residence, because government provides all this. How sustainable is this kind of administration from where we are knowing that the biggest percentage of our budget, one, goes to debt servicing. The next is recurrent expenditure, paying these salaries and buying these hospitals. How sustainable is it for the country?
Well, Mr. Phillip, sadly, this is not sustainable at all on two grounds. One, I'll borrow influence still from Frederick Badge, Tax Revolts and Rebellions. Then the second influence I'll borrow is from Committee of the 300. Dr. John Coleman specifically addresses that question on page 113 of his book. It's also in volumes. Like I said, the moment these taxes exceed the threshold, the moment, like what we saw the traders thing happening, the moment we have those sagas frequenting the media space, it means two things. One, that we are transitioning into danger. I might pose a question to us, why the president of this country has seen it necessary to increase parliament to that number by creating new districts, which I do not really think and submit that is a solution to poverty eradication. Two, the current RDCs that have been enrolled. What does that communicate about the future or about 2026? This tax increment and all this system that we are seeing happening today, is it for the betterment of this country, or it is someone preparing for what is about to befall us? We might need to also look into that window. So the question of spending and the question of sustainability, these people that have come into office, how have they come into office? Who keeps them in check? If we question RDCs, who, like you said, new double cabin, new what, that money, is it the best form of leadership that is fit for a country like Uganda, with Mulago, with over how many cancer patients that are just dying every day, how many babies we are losing in this health center force, how many people are dying on roads. We saw what happened at Nkumba, right? In Nkumba stage, that roundabout with Council Raphael losing his life. 8 hours of no rescue. But what is the distance between that spot and State House? I think maybe that's a question that we have not asked ourselves.
But the road was not
Yeah,
bad.
the road was not bad, but what took the government, or what took whoever was responsible 8 hours to come to the rescue? The gentleman was crying, he was lamenting. This is not a laughing subject. We are talking about taxes and we are talking about implementation. If it took 8 hours for police or whoever was concerned to come and rescue this gentleman, what guarantee do we have that in the next 20 years we are going to pay taxes and these roads will be constructed? And these cars, we shall have laws limiting the traveling of cars. We shall have laws that say border borders drive on this, this is a road for this, this is a road for this. How long is it going to take? It goes back to the quality and the quality of leaders that we send into these offices, and comes back to then us down. Because for us, even if we cry rain, little has been done. It's not the first time we're talking about tax, really. So sustainability and implementation comes back to the system of governance that we have crafted as a state.
Thank you, and indeed we continue to mourn the loss of that very, very good lawyer. It's unfortunate, and indeed, like you mentioned, those so many hours of no government, no police rescue. We know, I don't know now how many rescue personnel we have in the country. The Directorate of Fire Brigade and Rescue, something like that. The equipment, not sure. Sad story there, every time I look into it. Patience, sustainability in expenditure. We have government offices, the office of the president, you have the office of the government chief whip, leader of opposition, speaker, deputy speaker, the kinds of budget. You look at the office of the speaker, 13 billion shillings, the office of the deputy speaker, 11 billion, the government chief whip, the leader of opposition, and in those budgets, including what is in those budgets, is money for donations. Do we have such monies to spend so much lavishly like that in a minute?
No, we don't have. We don't have, because Uganda is a capitalist economy where wealth has been privatized. So we don't have the monies to spend.
Wow. Arinaitu, the expenditure we're in, she makes it so easy. We don't have these monies, but we continue spending these monies. We
As if
continue
we have the
creating
mind.
these. The last I checked, our national debt is now at getting to 100 trillion shillings. That is times 2 our budget.
I want to differ. Money is there, but our spending habits, that's a not good. Government has never failed to have money. I've seen incidences where the president directly says, like recently after the pit hole exhibition, was like, KCCA, allocate this money and work on the following roads. So money is there through donations and and taxation, but I think we have bad spending habits. Like, how can one person be allocated 13 billions, and in that 13 billions, the recent one, that person has failed to account for, and we are already awarding this. And another thing which really tackles my mind whenever I hear our leaders speaking, these are the lawmakers. All the money that is allocated in different sectors, they have a right and mandate to audit and refuse. So the way they refuse to merge organizations in form of creating employment, then they need to have a good habit in terms of reading, analyzing, paying people to do research for them so that they can pass favorable and healthy policies for their people. Because they don't read. These people come and say, we have passed 500
Thank
billion.
you. Yes, you have something to add to that?
Jotham, did you say the money is there?
Yeah, the money is there.
If the money was
money
there,
is
or
there.
if the money is there, then we would not have high taxes in the country, would not have workers striking, that there are delayed salaries in different sectors or in different places where people are working.
How about,
I think you
let's
know,
have one see the
how about
consolidated fund per ministry.
prioritization?
No, okay,
They
I want to ask you.
return to the
I want
government,
to ask you,
Bank of
have
Uganda.
you seen, let's say, doctors striking, that the money has delayed to come, or the salaries?
I thought money is there,
So
but
is there money really?
priorities.
So you want to tell me that doctors are not a priority to the country?
Our legislators, ask them. Money has been put in place, but the people they sent to represent them have failed to allocate them money. They are allocating themselves flights, trips, donations, weekend allowance, sitting allowance. At the end of the day, they remain with their money, but government has money.
Maybe
and
you forget to
have
add
money.
that recently one of the debates that caught the attention of the country was that for a whole about 45 minutes or so, the House was debating about creating an in-house saloon for members of parliament.
Exactly, 45 minutes.
That's debate for another day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I think I should give you 30 seconds each to give your final remarks and we close the show. I'll start with you, Arinaitu.
I thank you so much for always hosting me here. I'm very delighted and super excited when I meet my fellow young colleagues here, sharing important information and issues that are suppressing our community. But I want to urge everyone outside there that pay your tax, but at the same time, ask for accountability and question your leaders if they know the tax policies that have been put in place, then you'll tell me. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Arinaitu, for that. Yes, Patience.
Thank you so much. My name is Bisikwa Sharon Patience, pursuing a bachelor's degree in public administration and resource governance. I am so glad to be here, and I would like to still stand with him about what he has said about payment of taxes, and still out there, please kindly ask the leaders for accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patience, and we look to draw in the near future into that public administration expertise you are to hold.
Governance.
Yes.
My name once again is Arinda Rugambwa, the son of the hills. I would still go back to saying, please do not run away from EFRIS. Let's embrace the transformation, and of course, in as much as we want to embrace the transformation, maybe, Mr. Moderator, the next show, you maybe think about us. Currently graduates, but now I'm unemployed. I am here.
Pay your EFRIS.
So, in as much as we are debating tax and tax returns and government not implementing and not doing this and what have you, please let's make sure that we support the nation. It is us. Again, it is our country. It is not anyone's a household item. It's our country, and if we do not stand up for it, no one is going to. Yeah, thank you so much.
Arinda Rugambwa, thank you so much for the amazing views and for joining us today. Patience Bisikwa Sharon, thank you so much for the amazing views and for joining us today as the only lady before the camera, but also behind the cameras. We have a couple of ladies. Civic Space TV keeps that in check. Alinaitwe, thank you so much for the amazing views and for being with us today. And to your viewers, thank you so much for keeping it, the inter-university debates on Civic Space TV. Remember, special thanks go to Center for Constitutional Governance for always supporting this particular cause. Also special thanks to the people behind the machines, ladies and gentlemen out there making things run. We thank you so much. Again, we continue to ask you citizens, like the panel has agreed, it is good to pay taxes. Please pay your taxes, but also call on the people who are in charge of managing these taxes. Make sure there is sustainable and valuable value for the taxes people pay. We continue to ask for peace from whoever can do a thing about it. In the Sudan, we continue to ask for peace. In the DRC, we ask for peace. In Ukraine, in Gaza, Israel, Iran, Chad, Niger, Mali, Senegal, and everywhere on this planet where there is no peace, because peace is the only driver to sustainable growth and development of humanity. Thank you so much, Phillip Muliisa. Good evening, and may you have freedom always.